Okay. Hello and welcome to episode 4 of Film Student School. This is David Ortega, also known as Dark Spider David, from which this channel is named upon on Twitch. And wow, I gotta be honest, I know it's only the 4th episode, but it still kind of dawns on me that it's episode 4. Three weeks ago, I barely started this thing, and now I'm almost a month in, and I'm on the 4th episode. Wow, that's kind of crazy. I'll probably say I'll go like a good, I'll pull Quentin Tarantino and say to myself, okay, 10 episodes, and then we can call it, So if I really wanted to go full Tarantino, I'll do that. But otherwise, that is it. So, let me see here. So everything's looking good over on the streaming side of things. Microphone's working good, camera's doing fine, and I decided to be a little bit more on the casual side when it comes to the wear, no tie, no fashionable type thing. Maybe I'll bring it back on next week. But today I just decided to go for a little bit more of a casual attire, so to speak. So this 4th episode is titled "No Small Parts," and it's obviously a kind of tied to that old adage when it comes to either theater or film, which is that there's no such thing as small parts, only small actors. In the sense that someone could be a relatively speaking unknown and they can break big with the right role because it brought them the right amount of attention or the right kind of attention, or both. And the reason why I called this episode episode 4 is because of the parts, is because of the roles. Who is who over in film school once you've enrolled? We've talked about, the tier 1s, tier 2s, all the different kind of classes and what happens right at the get-go when you first get into film school. More from a much more not subject-wise standpoint when it comes to which classes, which directions you want to take, if you're going into some kind of a specific position, whether it be producer, director, whatever. Now we have to talk about the people, because I mentioned that at the end of the last episode, it was all about the networking, right? All about the connections that you make in film school that can ultimately dictate who you end up befriending or, associating yourself with in the industry and who can maybe get you in. Who is that person? And that's pretty much what episode 4 I wanted it to be. So it's going to be centered all around the roles that these people play when you first get into film school. Because of that, I know I said this on the last episode, but I think this one might just be the short one, only because there's not a whole lot that I can really bring to the table as far as like personal stories as to who's who, because as I mentioned in the past episode, most predominantly in the last episode, and a little bit in the episodes leading up to it, that I just really wasn't the most outgoing, very social person. Not just in film school, but just in life in general. Mainly throughout high school, a little bit in middle school, but it was actually in high school where I did start to shell myself up. Just because, for 2 reasons. One, I was starting to, notice, just how cruel the world can really be, especially how cruel let alone how cruel this industry can really be. Even though I'll have to admit that I think in terms of accessibility, things have gone just a tiny bit lenient on that front, only because now there's just so much, like the old methods, not only because of how progressive things have gotten with society in general, but also with just the methods of how to get the material out there. It's not... I'm not saying it's not dog eat dog anymore. It really is still, but just from my personal perspective, I don't think it's as much as it was before, because things that were passe before are now completely, inappropriate now. Not saying that that's a good thing or a bad thing, but it just, leads to inevitable ripples that make it a little easier, not easier, but just a bit more lax to get into this kind of industry. Shrek Wazowski, how's it going? Welcome to episode 4 of the Film Student School that I run here every Thursday nights at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, I mean, the roles of who you're meeting and who you're gonna have to network with is pretty much gonna be the main subject here. That I can talk about at face value, but I have to admit, I have to put it here at the forefront, I'm not super well versed on because of just how introverted I really was. Not just going to the film school, but again, going to community school, community college, going to high school. That's just naturally how I was, and that was something that I was trying to change. Literally this past quarter, well, the quarter before this past one, and that's where we got hit with the coronavirus. So that kind of just flew right out the window. So that was disappointing. But so the rules. Let me bring up my little list here because I still have a little bit of a breakdown here on my good old Microsoft Word on episode 4. Actually, I have 8 episodes cooked up here, so I'll have to see where we land on episode 10. So let's go to the very root of the network, the very center. I'm trying to think of what could be like a good terminology to use, but I can't really think of any right now. But let's say we look at the nugget in the middle, the creamy center, which is you, essentially. If you were to look at, like, how you have family trees, or now I think some people are even starting to call them family webs because it's you in the middle, and then it shows it's stemming to your parents, obviously, and then here are your siblings, and then from there you got your aunts, your uncles, and so on and so forth. And it starts to kind of all encompass around one person. That person still ends up being you on the family tree. Or at least it all kind of roots out from you in that family tree. Essentially, that network that you're creating is, of course, starting from you. So the type of network, how big this network's going to be, who it is that you're meeting, who it is that you're talking to, and what roles they play in your path to not only becoming much more fruitful in film school, but also who you want to be really in, what kind of position you're aiming for in the industry with film, ends up on you. And what position you're filling yourself in. So I guess from here I can use myself. I guess right here is probably the best way to use myself as an example rather than trying to come up with experiences. Let's say that I want to be a director. All right, let's not just say that. Let's say that's actually the truth. I do want to be a director. Well, at the same time, also writing my own, directing my own material that I write, maybe co-writing with someone. I actually would not be as opposed to either co-writing a script with someone, bouncing the ideas back and forth, or just having that other person write out the full entire script and then I'll direct it, just so that I can kind of get the different perspectives. And I tackled on this on the past episode, either the past episode or the episode before that one, about whether or not you need film school in the first place. Go and check those out if you haven't already done so. They're up on either my Twitch as highlights or on my YouTube channel as full-blown videos. So with me, my main emphasis is directing. When I went into film school, the very first thing that I told my guidance counselor, important role number 1 actually, that we can kind of get that out of the way, the guidance counselors, because right at the very beginning, one of the very first people that you're going to meet, aside from the tour guide that I mentioned, the open house, it's going to show you around the rooms, it's going to show you where everything takes place, is going to be that person who's going to perform a form of audit. An audit is sort of like going through the checklist of what it is that you need to take in order to graduate from the film school with obviously some kind of associates or bachelors, but making sure that that degree is tied to whatever it is that you're passionate about, which in my case was directing. So if you want to be an editor or if you want to be a cinematographer, they pretty much curate all these classes that you need to take. Most of that curation and development happens in the tier 2 and tier 3 segments of your entire time that you're in the film school, because obviously that first tier, as I mentioned in the past, I think it was either in the last episode or the one before, that tier 1 is mainly made out of classes that almost every single person needs to take, guaranteed. And we're not just talking about like directing classes or writing classes. We're talking about, like I said, the fundamentals of film, visual design, principles of production, making sure that you know all the basics and you know what every role kind of plays, mainly on set. So be prepared for those classes to for sure be pinned under your tier 1 segments. And then we get into, like I said, tier 2 and tier 3, and that's where that guidance counselor is going to start breaking down what it is that you need to take to fill in your path to be graduating out of the school with some kind of resume or piece of paper or something that tells industry leaders or people who want to give you an internship or a job saying, hey, this person's after being a director, this person's after being an editor, yada yada. So important role, someone who's very key in making sure that this whole thing is as successful as it can be is that guidance counselor. Now, did I have, from my personal experience at the film school that I'm currently going at, I haven't had any, prolific and awesome guidance counselors. They kind of do the base. Well, actually, you know what? No, I take that back. I actually did have one. I mean, he wasn't. He wasn't like amazing, but he would talk about some of the subjects in my film at my film school a little bit more in depth than others. That's all I can say. Well, to be honest, not only is that all that I'll say, but it's all that I can't say because I got to be honest. I feel kind of bad because I can very, very distinctly remember his face. I know if I can point him out, but I cannot remember his name. So there it is. But I can see his face right now. I'm really good with faces, bad with names. I'm very bad with names, but great with faces. I will recognize someone. I'll be like, oh yeah, you were from the. It's the names, just assigning. I need repetition for that to happen. But this guy, yeah, and of course, just as fate would have it, just when I thought, oh man, this guy's kind of cool. I want to see if maybe I could come back next quarter to, to perform another audit, to kind of get me where I need to be in case I want to do an internship. Oh, he's gone. Yeah. And that's actually another little minute lesson that I want to kind of add here as an anecdote to that first important role, which is the guidance counselor. Try to talk to them as much as possible, because if you end up loving this person because of the way that they're able to paint a really clear roadmap for you, or if they're just doing something that you've just never seen a guidance counselor do before, whether it be in your past schools, high school, you name it, try to talk to them and try to get as much contact information from them as possible, and not just contact information that they can maybe relay over to you about, like, hey, look, this person right here is looking for an intern, but if they're okay with it, their contact information, their Facebook, their email, their phone, whatever, so that they can maybe give you some tips and some things on what to do later on in the future, because that person might dip, because you never know. I guess that's another little big thing that I want to be emblematic here with. I want to cement very firmly, not just in this episode. I might even have to reiterate it in future episodes. You never know what's going to be happening behind the scenes. You never know what could be happening behind the scenes when it comes to the faculty, the teachers, you name it. Within your circle of friends, you can maybe keep up with what goes on behind the scenes, because sometimes you need to know, especially if you're heading up a big project and you in the hard way, you find out that so-and-so couldn't, an actor couldn't get along with a cinematographer or whatever, and you have to rectify the situation. That's a topic for another time. But when it comes to some of these faculty members, especially the ones that you really, were able to value, not just from an academic standpoint, but just from a social standpoint, they could dip. Like I said, they could bounce, and because maybe they gave him or her a cut on their salary, and they were fed up with it, and they're like, no, they're not budging on negotiations. I'm out. I'm gonna go to a school that's gonna pay me what I deserve, because I know what they can bring. They know what they can bring to the table, and they'll have people to vouch for this. I remember there was even another one that I spoke to, a really nice lady. Actually, whoa, what's happening here? I actually remember her name. I'm not going to disclose it, but I do remember her name. At my film school, and she was pretty cool. A sweet woman, and she was very informative about her things, very communicative. Like, I remember she would respond quickly to emails, really good with emails. She was gone. Why would someone that good, disappear? And that's, it's got to be some weird stuff going on behind the scenes. And, just be attentive to that, and thoroughly read your school emails. Whenever you get an email from the school as a collective type thing, make sure you read it. Make sure that nothing is getting past you. You know what I mean? So that's the first very important role that you're probably going to meet. And then we get over to, so let's tackle the faculty since I just mentioned them now. So you have the advisor, the academic advisor. You also have your financial advisors. Now these are these people are important, but not. Let's just say that they're important in order to, from a much more cut and dry and technical standpoint, because the financial advisors, first and foremost, are not your friend. Okay. From my experience, from what vibe I kind of get from the ones that I've talked to, some of them are very clear, very clearly just doing the job where it's like, okay, they're just tallying up the numbers, and this is how much you have to pay, this is how you can enroll in financial aid from FAFSA, so you can get some help, whether it be a grant or a loan or whatever. And then there's others where that they're working with some other kind of party to make sure that number one gets his or hers. That's how I'll put it. So read the signs, not just the little ones on the page and the contracts that they give you and the forms that they give you, but also just in terms of body language, or listen to your gut, basically. Whatever kind of instinct you use on set, as a director, as a writer, as an editor, cinematographer, actor, you name it, use that same gut feeling to read certain people within the faculty. Because out of all the divisions that are very important when it comes to roles at film school, the one that you need to pay the most attention to, in my opinion, is the faculty. And unfortunately, not in a good way. Mine is, like I said, the academic advisor, the counselor, because they're the ones that you can sometimes very much tell that they enjoy being able to make these paths for their students and to just endlessly talk about them. Like I said, there was that one guy who, he blocked me, I think, for like a 30-minute thing, and I think we did go over like 10 or 15 minutes, but because he kept, expounding on some information, and I'm like, oh, dope. But ever so often, you'll get that faculty member, mainly from the financial side, who will be very cut and dry with the numbers and then be like, okay, here you go. And if they could, they'll be like, they'll buzzer like the old school, with the machines, like to the receptionist, be like, send the next one in. Like if they could do that, they would probably do it. So yeah, just read the signs, pay attention to any kind of red flags you might be seeing or just overall feeling, because the faculty, not the teachers, and I'm not talking about the teachers. I'm not counting the teachers. I'm talking faculty. So I'm talking about all the people that handle all of the much more managerial stuff. So the people who handle the money, like I said, the academic advisors, which, like I said, you're going to have some okay and some that look out for number one. And they'll, the good ones will definitely, just like the the academic advisors or the counselors, they'll also break down what would be the best opportunity to make sure that you don't go broke. Because if you go broke, then you can't pay the school. But more importantly, they want to make sure that, they want to make sure that everybody wins, so that you can graduate with a degree, they don't end up with a lawsuit or having to pay anything back to you, making sure that they make money, but then everybody's happy because they'll, then the student will get the worthwhile money. That's the ultimate goal for the financial advisors. But you'll have some where your happiness doesn't mean shit, okay? Sounds harsh, but ultimately I think this is probably the harshest episode I have to do, because the faculty is the one where I'm like, as pessimistic as it sounds, don't turn your back at them, because sometimes they look out for number one, especially if some of these faculty members have been on the job for way too long and they've burnt out, because we're all human. We're all human. How many of us have worked a job and then after a year or so, maybe 2 years, we start to feel it. We start to feel like we don't want to be here anymore. We used to love it here, but we got to move on. We got to move on. Even if you're making bank, even if you're in a manager position, you're like, I'm done. I know someone who's been at this job. She was a manager. She's been a manager for 6 years, and she has her moments where she's like, I'm done. I'm done. I got to go and do something else. And sometimes you have to listen to that. But then others, they'll be like, well, but the money's too good, but then they're putting it in at work. And that's why you sometimes, and that's no exception for film school, because you'll have those faculty members where you come with them with the trouble because you got overcharged on tuition, or, you got signed up for the wrong class, and they won't want to deal with it. So, like I said, pay attention to those signs, to the body language, and make sure that you're taken care of, because ultimately it's you who's paying all this money. Even when I say all this money, even with financial help, you're going to pay, because eventually those loans are going to have to kick in. I don't know. Every school is different in terms of, the actual technical details. By the way, Snicks, how's it going? What's up? In terms of, when you have to start paying, how much you have to start paying, and there's some kind of payment plan that you can set up, yada, yada. But eventually you'll have to pay, which is one of the reasons why I really want to get started on the script, because I at least want to sell a script so I can have at least a good chunk of change to start paying those things off at the beginning. Because for me, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, loans need to start being paid 6 months after graduation, which is one of the key reasons as to why I'm kind of happy that I haven't graduated just yet. Because and who knows when I will, because with this COVID situation right now, who knows? Because I'm definitely taking the summer off. I take the summers off anyway. And in fact, my school, I don't know if Los Angeles Film School does this, or in Full Sail or whatever, but my school expects so many people to not sign up for the summer classes that they're even like, okay, like for any other quarter, you have to tell them that you're not doing any classes, and you have to fill out a leave of absence form, except for the summer, because the summer is the shortest. It's the one where everybody just naturally doesn't want to go to school because it's summertime, and they're like, yeah, just don't sign up. If you sign up for classes, then you're enrolled, but you don't even have to give us like a form. You don't have to let us know that you're not coming. Just don't sign up. And that's pretty much what I do almost every summer. I think there was only 1 or 2 summers that I'm like, there was this one class that I needed to take, and that was the next one up, and I just want to get it out of the way, so I went to that class during the summer. But otherwise, I almost take every summer off anyways, but I will most definitely do so with what right now what's going on, because, another thing to keep in mind is that you also want to make sure that all of your bearings are in order, and you need to email and recreationally contact these advisors, financially and counselor-wise, because you don't want to take a class that you can't take full advantage of when something such as, I don't know, a pandemic strikes. Okay? I'm currently playing games to be in a level so I can get stuff. Snakes, that's super generic and vague. I have no idea what you're talking about. Sorry, man. So that's one member of the faculty. You have another member that will, like I said, you have your financial advisors that talk about financial aid, how to get the money to go to film school, how to make sure that you're covered for books, if you're covered, if you're going to be moving on site, if they have some kind of dormitory, or if they have some kind of site that has dorm rooms and such like that. Of course, right now that's a little difficult to kind of get started, but say, for example, if in the future, this whole thing with COVID gets relieved and things go kind of sort of back to normal, you want to look into student housing. One thing to just kind of keep in mind as a rule of thumb is that they own the housing, which means they can do whatever they want with it, technically speaking. Never forget that. I would probably even say that I would almost say that the student housing part, make that your last resort. Otherwise, see if you can bunk with someone off-site, near in the LA area, but bunk with someone so that you guys can mitigate the rent, and you deal with your traditional landlord instead of dealing with the school, who, if they fail accreditation, or if they start to go, I don't want to say bankrupt, but funding starts to get cut through, they might not be able to afford leasing that building anymore or that space. And poof, you're gone. So, one thing to keep in mind. I'm trying to be in a level so I can get stuff to help my team. Well, what game are you talking about, Six? Again, you're being generic. Details here. What's the level? I'm sorry, what's the game? I'm in a level in a video game. So am I. MLB The Show 20. Okay. Alright, that makes sense. And what do you mean by level? Because it's a baseball game, how do you get levels in game in the? Well, when you say level, you mean like leveling up? Because in a level, I'm assuming it's like a stage. If you're leveling up, then that means you're trying to grind. Yeah, you can level up, or then you're grinding the game out. Then yeah. Damn, man, you're a gamer. You have to get your terminology straight. Okay. So yeah, those are. I'm trying to think of other. Before I get to the teachers, I really want to see what other faculty, because those were the key ones. It was going to be the counselor. It was going to be and then you have others that, because I'm trying to think of all the faculty that was at my film school, and there were a handful of financial advisors and a handful of academic advisors, because obviously you have to split the work amongst the hundreds, possibly even thousands of students that are going to your school. You have the ones that are tackling A through D and then E through H, with via last name, so they go by the last name. So sometimes you get assigned to people, just like it would be in any school, whether it be middle school, high school, elementary, whatever. That's they still follow that similar type of hierarchy, but of course they just have to look at it from a film school perspective or context. Um, so you have at least those two rules. I'm trying to think of who else. You got some people who handle accounting, so they're not advisors, so to speak, about your finances, but they keep track of what you need to actually get. So basically, the way I like to place it is that the academic advisor or the financial advisors are the managers who kind of set things kind of in motion. You can look at the accountants as the ones who, like, for example, if you, like right now with COVID, if we're ordering something for curbside pickup, the managers are the financial advisors, and then the person who's taking the product up to your car, and that's their only job. That's accounting, because all they're there is to make sure that either you're getting money that's refunded back to you because they didn't use all of it from the loans or from the grants, or you are paying what's needed to cover for the tuition or cover for any kind of side expenses, you name it. Those are the accountants. Very clear and dry there. I mean, you just gotta look at it not like this is probably the one of the few roles in the faculty that you have to look at it from just as it is. It's doesn't pertain to film at all. And then you also have some others that with the curriculum, especially with some of the A through G requirements. So some of the English stuff, some of the math stuff, some of the science stuff. They handle that. They handle those courses, and of course that's just very basic. Who else in faculty? Of course, you're gonna have your dean. Fun fact: I don't think I've met my dean. And to be quite honest, I don't think I ever will. Because I mean, I gotta be honest. Now that I think about it, whoever is watching this, they might end up disagreeing with me, but I think it's the dean's job to make themselves known to the students instead of the other way around. I don't think I need I don't think I need to seek out my dean to meet him or her to be like, hey, you're the dean of my school. How's it going? I like going here. No, the dean, and I'm talking outside of that orientation day, because obviously if you're only doing orientation day or you're only doing that first, that open house, saying yes, I am the dean of that. Well, yeah, no shit, you're gonna do that. You're trying to get these people to sign up so that so they can start paying. A dean needs to go out there and make themselves known. And I don't think my current dean, because I think I've actually gone through. You know what? Yes, I'm on the second dean during my time at my film school, and you know what? The first dean I did see. I didn't meet him personally, but I did see him popping in and out of some classes, and saying, and like you would have a teacher or so, I'd be like, oh, Dean so and so, and they're like, yeah, oh, hey everyone, yeah, so don't mind me, yeah, like that. He was very stoic and stone faced, but exaggeratingly to the point where he was using it for humor. Thankfully, so he had a sense of humor. It was just that like think of your Monty Python British man that's like very deadpan, but you know that they're doing it for humor. Um, he was kind of like that. Can't remember his name, but that was the dean. My first dean. The second dean, we've had a new dean, and I think the closest I've seen his face has been in some of the recent emails I've been getting in relation to COVID. On the little like on the Gmail where you see their profile picture. That's it. Before that, I didn't know what it looked like. And I got to be honest, I think, especially when you go to a very art centric school like film school or music or whatever, if you're the dean of one of those places, you need to make yourself known. I'm sorry, that's just my principle. You need to make yourself known. We shouldn't be having to go out there and look for you. You need to come to us. You need to make sure you show us that you care, that you're not just after our money. You're actually like, hey, part of the school. This, your blood. And if you're not doing that, then again, here come those bad vibes. Look out for those bad vibes. Living up and not good at English. I like writing stories, especially dark stories. I think you said that before, Snicks. I got 2 A's in my English class because of my stories. Oh, really? 2 A's? Like recently or just overall? Oh, let me just send a quick text here. All right. Longest stories was 650 and was in December 2018. 650 words. Okay. I challenge you, Snicks. I challenge you to 1,000 words. But that was only 250. I challenge you to a 1,000-word story, Snicks. Okay. So you exceeded the limit. Okay, so yeah, you have your dean. You're gonna have your president of admissions. So they pretty much run to make sure that not just you're gonna have your admissions department. You're gonna have your president. You're gonna have your the people who are kind of under them, and so on and so forth. Admissions is pretty much making sure that you're enrolled. So the academic advisor, it gives you that path. Admissions is a bit more very much black and white in the sense like you are signed up or you are not signed up for that particular class. How can we get you in? Did you get your transfer credits from that prior school? Yada yada. I'm trying to think of like what other departments there were in the faculty before I move on to teachers. God, well, I'm trying to think. What other faculty members? Yeah, I got admissions, I got finances, I got the counselors. I guess, I don't know if they count. You know what? No, they're not going to count. They're not going to count. I'll save them for the teacher segment. I'll mention them in a brief moment here. But I think that's really it for faculty, unless I'm missing some. I'll try to see if I can come back to whoever I'm missing by the end of this episode, hopefully. And if not, then maybe next week I'll add a little side note saying, hey, this is the person I forgot. But once again, I'll reiterate, faculty, go to them for the information, but remember, they're not your friend. They can be your friend, but ultimately they're not your friend. Okay? They're there to do the job. Make sure the school makes money. But hopefully some of those good ones will make sure that the school makes money, but you're getting your money's worth. As far as classes, as far as information, as far as networking, as far as resources. And making sure that you graduate, or making sure that that percentage of graduation stays as high as it can be. Okay? That goes to you, Shrek Wazowski. Thanks for the tips. It is very helpful because I wanted to be in film school. No problem. That's actually what I started this series for. So, I'm glad somebody is. And like I said, I'll be I'm an episode behind, but I'm hoping that in between episodes that go live on Twitch, I will post the previous week's episode over on my YouTube channel, and I'm hoping that some people will check it out there, and will migrate over, and they'll see that they can catch some of these live, interact with me live, um, and yeah, that's pretty dope. All right, so let's move over. Like I said, I'll try to think of whoever it is that I'm. You know what? What the hell? I just realized. I think I have the internet. I can just go to my freaking school's website. God damn it! And actually look at the about section. See if there's a faculty section. I think there is. Oh, or maybe there isn't. I remember there used to be a section that had like all the faculty and like what's it all about. Mine, yeah, that's another thing. Um, Never underestimate the website because I remember. See, right now I'm witnessing it in real time. Um, I remember the website for my school being a lot more fleshed out, and now I can literally count the amount of pages on both of my hands, and that's it. Oh, wait a minute. Is that the degree section? Let's go to degree. Because now what they're doing, I don't know if it's a way to kind of downsource the website or to, keep contact as small as possible, even if it's over the internet. I know physically right now I understand because of what's going on, but I remember the website for my school having a shit ton of pages to browse through, and now if you want info, you have to request it. You have to put in your name and your email. I remember all the info being right here, right out of the gate, and now you have to request it, so you get an automated email with like the curriculum and all that stuff. So I'm like, shit. And I'm seeing it now. I've seen it in passing before, but right now I'm just like absorbing it fully. Like, yeah, that's another thing too. Always check the website for like updates and things like that. If whatever film school you're thinking about going to, if they have a social media, Twitter or whatever. Because I remember, well, this is somewhat unrelated, but let's just say that I was getting this strange feeling that my work's blog wasn't getting updated properly. So I started going to their Twitter. Um, and then I started to going to my girlfriend's work Twitter account, where she works at, for updates when this thing barely started breaking and businesses were barely starting to shut down. And it was through these two Twitter accounts for both of our employers, or both of our work places, that we find out that that's what's happening. Like, messages were being put out by their CEO on their Twitter account. There was nothing on the blog post. I personally didn't get anything on my work email until much later. I mean, it wasn't like a huge delay, but a little later in the day, it actually broke on the Twitter page. And I was like, what the hell? So check the social media sometimes, because whoever that person is that runs the social media is probably on the social media more than they are on just on the website builder or whatever software they're using to build the website. They're likely on Instagram, likely more on Twitter, because that's where they're keeping in touch with news and stuff like that. So that's where they'll be like, oh, I just got the update that we have to shut down, da da da. And then they'll go to the website because they need to be on a desktop computer. They have to be on a laptop to update that because they have to navigate certain software. So, pro tip right there. For your film school, check out the social media. Because now, as you can see right here, I'm a little underwhelmed now by my website, because I remember it being much more informative than it is now. Now you have to request the information. Okay, I don't want like multiple copies of the same packet on my email, but it is what it is. So, moving on from faculty, let's move on to teachers, which is the next very, very important. This is it. This is where you can definitely... I arguably, there's some caveats, but you can arguably let your guard down a little more and open both your mind, your soul, and your heart to whoever it is that you're having as a teacher. That's not to say, don't, fully, look into things, but basically, think back to the teachers that you liked throughout high school, elementary school, middle school, you name it. Even the whatever, if you went to college prior to the film school. Think back to those teachers that you loved, that you really enjoyed taking their classes. They made the class fun. They were informative. They taught you brand new things. They made an impact on your life. Think about those teachers and just take into account all that stuff. Actually, not just even the teachers that you liked, also take into account the teachers that you did not like. Why is it that you didn't like them? Why is it that you felt like they were a bad fit? Why do you feel like they didn't do their job right? Keep all of those traits as a curriculum of your own to measure and really assess every teacher that you have in film school. You're definitely going to have several different teachers because ultimately I would probably say the teachers you're going to see the most of are probably, unless, like I said, something happens and they lose their job or they quit or whatever the case is, the teachers you might end up seeing the most of around campus are going to be those first ones you have to take in tier 1, because chances are they're okay with being in tier 1 because they really want to be at the root of the teaching kind of method, the teaching flow when it comes to those principles of production or that visual design class, that all that very rudimentary stuff, because they want to have that kind of influence on you. Those are probably going to be the teachers you're going to be seeing the more frequent around campus, and chances are whoever is teaching that class that quarter for principles of production or visual design, whatever it is, they're probably going to end up switching it for something else. That class is usually a class that they might have to go back to ever so often to just kind of change their palette. But often, like for example, my principles of production teacher, I thought he was just going to be that, but then 2 3 years later, I had him again for one of the directing classes. No. Was it? No, it was a directing class. It wasn't one of the main directing classes, but it was an elective directing class called directing a short film or producing a short film, I think it was called. It was that same exact teacher. He just changed it up, and then he said he was going to go back to principles of production another quarter and then come back to like another directing one. That's most of the time what they do. So that's why I feel like those tier 1 classes, those very broad and meaty ones, those are going to be the ones that those are the teachers you're going to see a lot throughout campus. Ultimately, it falls onto you as to whether or not you want to have good social interactions with them, contact with them, if you get and of course, it's subjective. Everyone's different. Spidey Voice Shevin, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Everyone's going to be different. Not everyone's going to gel. I'm not saying anything is right or wrong. You're going to have that one person that you just didn't get along with. You don't hate them or anything, but you're just like, this isn't what it is. And you, obviously, from that point, be the adult and move on. Don't focus on that too much. Even if they were your principles of production teacher, or if they were your directing teacher, and you were thinking about being a director, and you didn't get along with this person, so what? Make sure that you learned something valuable, and just hold on to that valuable thing. If you didn't get along with that teacher, oh well, move it on. As long it was at the subjective point, you know what I mean? Like where it was just a change in opinions, that, it was just a difference in opinions and nothing more. Because an immediate red flag is recognizing when a teacher is not, especially at a film school. But honestly, this can apply to any kind of art-related school, whether it be music, art in terms of like painting or sculpting, or just anything that has to be looked with a subjective lens. A big no-no for any teacher. A couple of exceptions, but almost every single teacher at my film school needs to be held up to a particular standard. And that standard is you have to be objective when it comes to grading. When it comes to grading and passing and or failing students, you have to be objective. Objective. Not subjective. Shrek Wazowski, I got to go, but thanks for the helpful tips. I will keep this in mind. No problem, Shrek Wazowski. And tune in next Thursday. I'll have another episode then at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Uh, but teachers need to be objective in their grading because it's a legitimate ethical conflict of interest for a teacher to start grading a student with a lower grade because they disagree. Do not fall for it. Whoever's watching right now, if you're planning on going to a film school or a music school, anything that's like related to the arts, that's not based in science, that's not based in facts, that's not based in history, that's not based in rules, make sure your teacher's grading you objectively. I am glad it didn't end up being a worse number, but I at least had one teacher for sure, guaranteed he was grading me because he disagreed with my opinion on a film. Yeah, I had at least one. Thankfully, like I said, just one. It was literally just one. So I'm thankful because I think it could have been worse. So I'm somewhat counting my blessings. But I did have a teacher and thankfully it wasn't for any of the big ones that were in my higher regard of classes that I needed to take when it came to directing or screenwriting. None of my screenwriting teachers did it. I did have some disagreements with some teachers because of where I wanted a character to go, but they absolutely did not grade me on that level. They just graded me on a technical standpoint, making sure that it's something's cohesive and understood, and they understood it from the script page. The script page was at the right format. It was turned in on time. That was it. Whether or not they agreed if a character should do this or that, they couldn't grade me on that. They disagreed, but they didn't grade me on that. I did have one teacher, and it's funny because out of all the classes, it was a class for motion picture history. I can't remember what the subject was. I think it was like 1950 cinema or something. I don't know. I can't remember, but it was a teacher who was teaching, in motion picture history. I mean, the basis of those classes is to show certain films, screen the films, we react to it, we have a discussion, and then eventually, depending on the teacher, whether they want to assign weekly writing assignments or they want to do one big midterm assignment and one big final assignment that's like a big ass essay or something like that. It's gonna end up depending on you. But this teacher, I think he was doing these weekly things, and over the course of time, I just started noticing the patterns. Where, yeah, I'm following the syllabus as to how to get a good grade on this one assignment, but I kept getting lower subpar grades, and I for the life of me cannot remember, but I think at some point I did have a conversation with another student, another colleague, and they confirmed to me that they were like, yeah, I think this guy's grading because of our opinion, because someone who was agreeing with them, or someone who their opinion about the film was in line with his opinion about the film, they scored higher. But in terms of like the structure of the essay or the writing assignment or whatever, was just as passing as the other one. But because we didn't like the movie as much as he did, and the other person who did like the movie as much as he did got the higher score, and we were like, no. And you can bet your ass that when we got that survey, because at the end, I don't know if the Los Angeles chances are the Los Angeles Film School does this. My film school does have at the end of every quarter these surveys that they pass off, pretty much to say, hey, how's the teachers? They give you those surveys, and you can bet your sweet ass I fill those comments up saying, hey, get this guy in check. He is grading us on our opinions, not on the objective material of the assignment, but on the subjective, and you're not supposed to do that. As a teacher, that's the one standard you cannot betray, is grading subjectively. You can't do that. You can't do that, and he was doing it. Goddamn right, Snakes, I snitched his ass. Well, I mean, the surveys are anonymous. Yeah. No, yeah, and obviously the surveys are anonymous. Don't write your name on them. Just fill it out, and then boom. They used to be handwritten, and then over the course of time, they kind of caught on saying, "Oh, there's the internet. Why can't we just use that?" And that's how you fill it out now. Right now, they're actually being very emphatic on those surveys because they don't just want to know how the teachers are doing. They actually want to know how the current model is going with doing conference calls for the classes because of the virus. So they want to make sure that no one's gonna complain too hard, I guess. Um, so yeah, I did have at least one teacher doing that. So definitely look out for that red flag. Can't like I said from experience, I can't really because every experience could be really different when it comes to the teachers that you have. Obviously, it's all about that first impression, that first week, that first class. Um, it's most of the time, most of you, whoever's watching, will probably know from that first class, that first meetup, whether or not you're going to be able to gel with this teacher. And then other times, you might actually get the firm assessment as to whether or not you're going to like this person as a teacher. And that's the thing is that there's different levels as to whether or not you can get along with a teacher. You can get along with them as from a teacher standpoint. You can even get along with them from a friend standpoint. They become your friend, or that sweet gray spot in the middle, gray area in the middle. Like Tony Stark said, that's where you operate. Where they're more than just a teacher to you, but I mean you're not like buddies with them, but in the sense that if you ever need some kind of hookup when it comes to expanding that network and creating contacts and maybe getting a job or getting an internship, that teacher might be able to hook you up. That's one thing. It's kind of rare. It's kind of, scarce for this to happen. But theoretically, some of these teachers, especially the ones that are in the big roles, and I'm sorry not to sound like I'm undermining the other ones, but let's just say that the teachers that are teaching the visual design classes or the motion picture history classes, maybe not them per se, maybe. Again, you'll have to look into your teacher. You'll have to talk to them, or you'll have to listen to where they come from, because that first meeting, they're always going to introduce themselves and say where they're at in the industry. Most of the time with me, it was the writing teachers and the directing teachers that will almost always say, and actually the Hollywood Business Practices teacher, because she, the class is called Hollywood Business Practices. I remember, I actually did like her. I mean, she was a little overbearing in her laugh, in her voice, but in terms of like subject matter and getting the point across, I was like, hey, that's the world we live in. Because I remember the first class, she told us first and foremost, I'm here to let you know that they will take advantage of you. I was like, God damn. And telling like my class is to make sure that you know when you're getting taken advantage of and how you can avoid it, and making sure that you're not getting screwed over. Because ultimately that's what the class is all about. Hollywood Business and Practices, to make to iron out how contracts are filled out, making sure that you got, who's making the negotiations, what's an agent, how to get about an agent, so on and so forth. All that very, like she mentioned and how I kind of mentioned at the very beginning of this episode, the very dog-eat-dog side of the Hollywood business, the business side of the Hollywood business. And like I said, she was very cut and dry and very blunt about it. So I liked her. And it's some of these faculty members that you definitely want to keep your ear to the ground with, because hypothetically, I said hypothermia. Hypothetically, one of these days, if you impress them enough with whatever class it is that you're taking, with whatever it is that you turn in, if you impress them enough, who knows? Who fucking knows? They could hit you up and be like, hey, we need an intern. I can't guarantee you anything, but I say try applying. I can maybe put in a word for you. That's all it needs to get started. That's all it needs to get started. So like I said, know your teachers. I can't really, put out too much guidance or first-hand experience out there when it comes to teachers, because every teacher is different, and obviously you need to make the impression because everyone's different. I know it sounds like a trope, it sounds like a stereotype, but it's for real. Everyone's just too different. That some of the teachers that I got along with are probably not are teachers that some of the people didn't get along with. Some of them had that very deadpan, blunt, but charismatic sense of humor, and then other people like the more wholesome, very cheery types that I didn't. And there you go. Yeah, to each their own. You just got to be sentient about when you should like someone for the sake of liking someone because you get along with them, or when should you put that to the side and be like, hey, this person can get me in the door? Maybe, this could be a contact. Basically, one thing, to kind of take away from this is that whoever this teacher is, whoever the teacher you interact with, depending on the subject. So, say for example, if you're an editor, obviously pay attention to your editing teachers, depending on how many editing classes there are. For me, since I'm a directing a student or directing emphasis, obviously I never ever sat at the back when I took directing classes. I was always almost either right next to the teacher or right in front of the teacher. I would not hide. Writing teacher, I would either not hide or I would maybe be like in the second, because like I said, I want to take up a little bit of screenwriting. I would put up my hand, ask questions. I know it sucks, especially coming from an introvert, but ask questions. Ask them. I guess, one thing, especially if your school does like weekly classes. Like, for example, with me, every class is weekly. You can take multiple classes throughout the day, but that class is only designed, most of the time it will only be designed, again, case by case basis, but that class is designed to meet just once a week. So if that's the case, then in between classes, maybe come up with some questions and write them down. To be so on the next meetup, you can be like, oh yeah, I thought about this one thing. What did you da da da? And they'll provide some insight. A little kind of metaphorical homework assignments, kind of set yourself up with. That's something that I had to form a habit out of. Eventually I didn't have to write them down anymore. It was just something that would gnaw at my brain if I didn't get asked. Trying to think here. Yeah, because like I said, any of these classes, if you're an editor, pay attention to your editing teachers and try to gel with them, and you feel like you can't get along with them, then like I said, just try to absorb that information so that then you can relay it to any job that you're going out for as an editor. Or if you end up taking a second editing class and maybe you do get along with that person, put that information out and see what he or she thinks about him. Not the previous teacher, but that material, because you also have to look at this as a almost kind of like a job, because, well, let me put it to you this way. Someone who's interviewing for a job is probably not going to give you a job if one of the first things you do during the interview is to talk shit about the previous job you had. Because who knows if they're going to start talking shit about you, you know what I mean? Like, can they trust, so don't do that. Just, look at it as material. Don't look at it as like, oh, this teacher said that you should do this. What do you think? No, don't put it like that. Just put it like, I got this information. What do you think about this, and that? And then just, kind of shape it in your mind and know that, oh, I'll probably go along with this teacher a little bit more and keep, build a relationship or a network with this person as opposed to this other person. And lo and behold, this ties into last week's episode about the networking, a bit more affluent method of creating that network. And I guess, this is not just exclusive to the teachers. This can most definitely be applied to the students as well, the peers. Actually, some may argue that maybe this might be more important to the peers, because the peers or the students that all of you are on the same class or whatever, you're within the same age bracket. Maybe not the exact same age, but the same kind of field. You guys are going to be growing into this industry together. Might as well make the sparks fly somehow, right? I always hide. Why, Snakes? You shouldn't hide anymore, man. Especially in the English class. Be like, I'm Sonic. So, ultimately, like I said, I kind of want to leave it at that with the teachers, because it's again, it's very subjective. It's very case by case. Only whoever's watching this can make their own assessment as to. So, the way you would kind of break down and analyze teachers back in middle school and high school and be like, oh, I like this person, I like this person. Similar kind of beat you got going here in film school, because after all, it is still a school, but because it's much more rooted and it's much more direct to a passion that you love, you need to be a bit more resourceful with it and just look at it from so many different angles. I mean, I know it sounds kind of vague and broad, but you do have to look at it from different angles. Like, can this person benefit me in my career, or can this person benefit me as a mentor, or do I just bounce and look at someone else, or at least, like I said, try to absorb as much information as possible. It's different for everybody, and again, that's why I thought that this episode was going to be a little bit on the shorter side, because it's something that I can only provide my personal outlook on it, because every teacher's just so different, and a student is just so different, that it's just not that simple at all. And yeah, like I said, there's going to be very minute details that can change from person to person, because the way something works for an editor is definitely not going to be the same that works for a writer, a screenwriter, a director, a producer, yada yada. But just personalize it to those careers. But the method can ultimately still be the same. So the only variables would probably be the profession and the people themselves. But that middle cartilage of how to kind of create this network going starts to kind of duplicate, and I feel like it could be applied to not just, like I said, the teachers, but also the students. Hell, I wouldn't even rule out faculty. But again, I would probably say that ultimately the faculty's goal is to make sure that the school thrives. You kind of come second. Teachers are likelier to put you first, because they don't make money if more students go to the school. They don't. Teachers hardly make money as it is. Which is why when a teacher is a dick, or they're grading you on your opinion, there has to be something else behind the scenes outside of the job that's kind of influencing this, or they're just not a good person for this job. So whenever a teacher is being a good influence on you, whether it be just as a teacher in a basic format, not just throughout the schools that you've had, or the education that you've had, but also with related to film school, in the sense that they're relaying the information to you in a very awesome, very fun, very absorbing sort of way, where you can like retain the information and it doesn't just go in one ear and out the other. And also can provide a positive influence in the sense that they can maybe get you somewhere. Like I said, they can give you context, they can give you information on a studio or on a person of interest that is maybe looking for, like I said, someone for a job, for an internship, whatever. They're not doing it for the paycheck. They're all getting paid the same for the most part. They're definitely doing it for, when they're good to you in that format, there's a reason. And 9 times out of 10, that reason is because they see something in you. And, I definitely had a handful of teachers that did make it clear to me that they're like, yeah, keep going, man. Keep going. And definitely, wow, I'm getting kind of emotional. Yeah, definitely keep going. I actually have one teacher in my head right now that, yeah, he was definitely looking at me like, keep writing, man. Keep writing, keep directing. Don't drop this. Don't drop it. And like I said, those are the teachers that are not doing it for that paycheck, and try to keep them close, because like I said, if they bounce, they probably bounce for a reason. And they're the ones that you don't want to give them the faculty treatment with, so to speak. So listen to them. All right, that is it. Oh, Snakes, I'm not gonna wear the Dovahkiin mask on. I'm sorry. I don't know why. I should probably I don't know why I should probably disable the channel rewards during my Film Student Schools episodes, but I'm sorry. No, I'm not wearing the Dovahkiin mask on Film Student School. I'm trying to keep it as professional as I can, while at the same time having action figures in the back. I had one teacher who admitted for money. Yeah, I mean, yeah, no. Teachers, like I said, the quality will ultimately speak for itself when it comes to a teacher. regardless of what they're teaching, where they're teaching. If they're really good at their job, it's because they're not just doing it for the paycheck. They generally love teaching. It's not like a warehouse job where you could be good at warehouse, but you don't enjoy warehouse. And at that point, you're like, well, I'm good at it, and I make a good money for it, but there's definitely something else that I'm much more passionate job. It's not like that. Trying to ruin hair? Well, it's funny because I've been wearing a hat all day at work today, and it still stayed kind of coiffed, so I'm actually rather impressed. I think maybe the length is working in my favor here, because if you look at my back here, it's actually starting to puff out a little bit. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. It's starting to puff out. Starting to puff out. Getting long. Getting long. Nice cold windows. Oh, for the back seats. Cold windows in the back seats. Well, some of my classes take place in a theater, so if you're in the back, you're very far in the back. Sure, you have like the wall to kind of rest up against with the seat, and you are guaranteed not to have anybody kick you in the back in case they're like walking by or whatever. But at the same time, it really speaks for itself. I'm trying to hide. And thankfully, my teachers kind of caught on to that. Well, not thankfully. I don't know. It depends on the person who you're asking. But my teachers have caught on to that since we don't have assigned seating anymore, they know that whoever's sitting over there in the back, unless they can kind of tell that maybe they're running out of space, because ever so often there is a class that gets a little overcrowded, and that person came in a little late, like a couple minutes late, whatever, and they have to sit in the back, then obviously they're going to be like, well, they have to sit in the back, whatever. But if someone came in early, but it came in earlier than expected, but they purposely sit in the back, then they're going to be like, all right, what did you think of yada, yada, yada? So they know. They're actually, so if you go to film school, Snicks, they're going to call on you on purpose if you sit in the back, because they know you're trying to hide. Like I said, I turned into an outgoing introvert, meaning I will stay quiet until someone can actually set me off with the right question, especially when it comes to film. So yeah, I had plenty of classes where I was quiet, but once we got done watching a film or got done reading a script or whatever, and they did ask me like, David, what did you think? I'll start breaking it all down. I'll be like, hey, this is what I thought, this da 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 da, and I'm like, oh shit, okay. Then I got heard she got fired for assaulting the. Okay. Then she got fired for assaulting a student and only doing for money and was awful at teaching. I gotta be honest, even if she was good at teaching and she loved her job, you're getting fired for assaulting a student, period. It does not matter at that point. I think the bad at her job was the last of the problems there. What's sad though is that she'll get fired for assaulting a kid. It doesn't even matter if maybe the kid was being a dick. It's very basic. Teacher gets fired all the time. It's an adult versus a minor. No. What are they gonna do with the kid? Suspend him, but then he's back, or expelled, but then he goes to another school. Whereas the teacher gets fired and more than likely will have this kind of spread, and no other school will hire them because they're like, oh, this is the guy that jumped that one kid. I'll say I don't know. Oh, you'll say I don't know when they answer you? You're gonna fail that class, man. Because that's one big thing that is still on the objective side of things with my film school, with almost every single class, is that you need to have some kind of output. You need to have, or input rather. You need to be able to answer something, because I remember, this is probably not technically, I mean, we are talking about the students, I guess. You're obviously going to have your peers. You're going to have your students. This is, again, this is probably the worst one to call on because, everyone's different. Everyone's got different goals. But that's mainly what episode 3 was all about networking with those people, so that you find out who's who that way. Because networking is all about finding out who's who. This episode, with no small parts, I wanted to talk about the people that are very much guaranteed to be there, which is, like I said, the teachers, specific faculty positions, and the dean, etc. The students is probably the most diverse that it can ever get, especially nowadays. So it's only through networking that you can find out who is who. But in one of my classes, I remember I did have this one guy who was pissing me the fuck off because in every it's funny because not just me but also the teacher. The teacher was losing it, and I can share a little bit of his pain. But there was a student in this class I don't know if he didn't want to take the class or he didn't even want to go to film school, and maybe he was forced by like a parent or someone to go because he was very like he would like this is the chair, right? So he let me see if I could illustrate it. So sometimes he'll be sitting like this, or he'll be like slouched over, and he'll be like this. He'll be like that, or something like that. Almost look like he's sleeping. Um, he would ever so often answer, I don't know, or like he would barely give anything, and I'm over here like, dude, I swear to fucking yeah, it's not time for that anymore. By the time you get to film school, you're going to film school for a reason. You made this choice. You know what I mean? College, okay, I can maybe give you some wiggle room because you need that degree to get a job. You know, that endless cycle of life. But at in film school, film school is one is most definitely a choice. So I don't think anybody should be forcing you to go to film school. If you're going to film school, it means because you want to be in film or television. Because right now television is almost just as great, if not in certain avenues better than film. In fact, there's times where I'm like, this one project I have floating in my head, I wonder if it's better off as a miniseries than it is a film. I don't know. But you need to want to be there. I know that's an oxymoron, but no one's forcing you, and you can't be acting like you're being forced. And like I said, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt and say that maybe that it was that specific class that it was just wasn't what he was expecting or something. But at the same time, I'm like, why did he not fucking drop? Because he didn't drop. He stayed until the end, and chances are he probably didn't even pass. I don't know. So, I guess that's another little mini life lesson there is to know who to network with and who not to network with based on those body languages. Because I, for one, knew that I did not need to be talking to that guy. Well, films is not me. Not me. I think you meant to say films is not for me. I like films, but it's not for me. Oh, okay, like, you like to watch movies, but that's not where your passion or your career lies. I understand. Obviously. That one's different. That's why it's so difficult to talk about, who to network with because everyone's just so different that it's like, no, that's going to have to be an experience thing. You're going to have to do it there yourself. If I have a table by myself, I would rest my legs. I mean, yeah, but that's not the case here, all right? Basically, it was a room where all the tables are up against the walls and the tables have the iMac computers on. And right next to, you have one chair and then 2 feet, you have another chair with another student. And, he was acting all like that. And I'm like, dude, you can't be chilling here like that. I mean, if you need a break, go to the lounge section of the front lobby where they do have a couch. Go over there. Fuck. Stop wasting our time like this. Oh, wow, I'm working myself up here. So, kind of covered all bases here. I would probably say that I'm going to wrap it up here. So, it ended up going a little longer than anticipated, but I do feel like this is probably, not to toot my own horn here, but I do think that this is probably one of the more seminal episodes of Film Student School, only because never underestimate the wisdom that could be passed on. If you learned any kind of valuable wisdom with any teachers you did throughout school, in period, whichever teachers you had, it's no different in film. It's just tailored to the to the atmosphere, and to the profession of film or television. And just look out for that information. Like I said, keep going. It's just so much to unpack, but I'm hoping that, folks like in the chat here with Shrek Wazowski got some good pointers out of it. And whoever watches this on playback, whether it be here as a highlight on my Twitch channel or over as a separate video, a separate later posting of a video over on my YouTube channel, will find some kind of value in it. Despite the fact that this went on for an hour and 20 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and start signing off now. Snake Sabers and Shrek Wazowski, thank you guys for dropping on by. It's been a pleasure. What if that person had to do something and got tired? What do you mean? You mean the student that I was talking about? If you're tired, then go take a break or go get some coffee. Yeah, Snicks, I hate to use this cop out answer, but I'm gonna use it anyway. You had to be there. I feel like you had to be there, man, cause he wasn't acting tired. He was acting childish. I'm gonna go ahead and use that word now, childish. He was acting childish. Like was busy the day early, and the person you were talking. Snakes, I gotta be honest. I'm having trouble comprehending what you're saying here. Okay, so like I said, I'm gonna start signing off now. Snakes, Shrug Wazowski, thank you guys for dropping on by. Thank you for watching. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, whether it be like I said on my Twitch channel or on my YouTube channel, if you are somehow watching this on my YouTube channel, you can actually check out my earlier. You can check out these streams a whole lot earlier than they get posted over on my YouTube channel by visiting my Twitch channel or my Twitch account, twitch.tv/darkspiderdavid. Link is going to be in the description. If you are by some chance, like I said, watching this on repeat over on my YouTube channel and finding some kind of insight, you can actually interact with me the way Snick Sabers and Shrek Wazowski did during this entire time, so you can get some real-time input on my Twitch channel whenever I go live. Just make sure you hit that follow button and you turn on notifications. As Snicks is doing so right now in the chat, and you will probably find it in the description of this video on YouTube. I have links to my social media that if you want to keep track of me outside of YouTube and or Twitch via Twitter or Instagram at DarkSpiderDavid, all one word, no caps. Links are going to be in the description. And if you're watching this on Twitch, links are going to be in the bio section because I do believe that we're moving over to a new channel format. I can't remember if it's called bio or about. I think it's called about. The about page. You should be able to click that, and it's going to show you a brief description of my channel. And over on the right side, you're going to see links for my Twitter, for my Instagram, and also for my Discord server, because obviously, like everybody else, I also like to game here on my Twitch channel. So I have a Discord channel if you guys want to, or Discord server if you guys want to be a part of it. And that way I'll post updates on streams, I'll post polls, I'll post just natural, topics of discussion if I ever feel like it. And then over on my Twitter, go my updates as to whether or not, whether I'm going live or not, or just things that are on my mind, whether it be reviews of games or movies or things that I've been checking out recently and the like. And, of course, Instagram is for your usual grammage. Otherwise, that does it for me. Thank you guys for tuning in. No Snicks, I will not give you that credit card number. And hope you guys all have a great rest of your week. Take care, and see you later.